Good afternoon, ladies, gentlemen, and everyone in between. Today, I wanted to revise some of our concepts that I've taught you and just go over some puzzles and in game situations that you might face in your upcoming games. Chess.com made me a playlist where I just I can look through these puzzles and go through them with you right now. So, you can see this puzzle. Try to solve it and try to find something that's off with it. So I'll give you a hint. It has something to do with a hanging piece. So a piece that is able to be taken and nothing is able to take it back. The correct answer is Rook E takes knight on E5. So you just do this. That's correct. Let's go on to the next puzzle. Look at this puzzle. You're under a threat, and you need to defend yourself. However, you're looking forward to a promotion. Your pawn is defended, and the pawn is one square away from promoting. So you need to stop a kind of. So what do you do? In this situation, you would take the bishop, as even if the rook takes your as you're under threat, so you have to do something about it. The rook, even if it takes the bishop, next move you promote to a queen, and then if the rook tries to take this rook, you're still able to take back. Then with the pawn, with the queen, you pick up all of these pawns, or you can go straight for the checkmate, depending on how confident you are that you're able to convert the win. Let's go to the next puzzle. This puzzle is a little bit more complex, but this also has to do with a hanging piece, as we just saw the opponent make a queen move. This one's quite simple, so look for it. It's quite easy to find, and it's that this knight is threatening to take this hanging queen. The queen isn't exactly hanging, as it's protected by the knight. However, the queen is valued at 9 material points, and the knight is valued only at 3. So 3 knights would be valued at for 1 queen. So even if you were to take this queen with your knight, and the knight takes you back, you're still up by 6 points. Looking at this puzzle, it's a little bit more complex. This is a mate in 2 moves. You make a move, your opponent makes a move, and then you're able to mate him. So here, your opponent threatens you with their knight. You're not able to take that knight. However, this creates a checkmate in 2. Look for it. The correct thing to do is to take this rook, and the knight takes your queen, but that doesn't matter because the rook at the bottom slides all the way up the board to checkmate the king, as this is called a back rank checkmate, where the pawns block the king in, and there's nowhere for it to run, and nothing to protect it. As before, when the knight was here, I think. No, the knight. Yeah, when the knight was here, he could jump back here to protect the king. But since he moved in order to take the queen, that is no longer possible. Let's go on to the next one. This is also another checkmate in 1 this time. This is a checkmate. It's a very similar concept to what we saw last time. Actually, it's the exact same concept. So I'd imagine you would be able to find it. Go for it. The correct answer is just sliding the rook up and claiming that checkmate. It's actually a mate in 2, as the rook is able to block it, as that's the only legal move. He needs to sacrifice the rook to just hang on for one more move. You still checkmate though, and you still win the game. Let's move on. So, this is a little bit awkward, but it's the exact same concept again. So I don't even need to say anything. Go for it. I hope you found it. Rook slides down, and you win the game. Let's move on. This is pretty much the same concept, but disguised. So, in this position, your opponent is launching a massive attack on your king. Your king is pretty much boxed up, it has no squares to move, and the opponent is threatening checkmate at 1. However, if you get his king first, you still win the game. So look for the move. The move is queen takes rook. It should be quite intuitive for you, but if it's not, you can go to chess.com and just practice these puzzles yourself. There's even if you're uncertain in certain categories, you can search them up in the puzzles and just work on those. Okay, let's move on. This is a little bit different. It's the same concept, but you have to think about it. Because now the king seemingly has another open square, so sliding the rook over wouldn't really work. However, look at your other pieces. Look at your bishop looking on this diagonal, covering these squares. So what do you do here? You slide your rook down and you checkmate your opponent. So this is the fork I explained last video. This concept is usually applied to the knight. So look at the knights in this position. Look at the 2 knights. This knight is more defensive, but there's no way he can attack either of these pieces, because if he goes here, he just gets taken by the bishop, and and the queen is able to take back, so you just lose. But the other knight is in a very attacking position. It's very close to the king, so it will able to create a forcing move. So think about a move. Remember, the knight moves in an L shape. Where should the knight go in order to attack 2 pieces at once? The correct answer to just go C2, as this threatens the king and the rook simultaneously. So the next thing your opponent would do is move his king, as that's the only legal move. He could go either of these 3 squares, but that doesn't really matter, as you take the rook next turn. Sometimes the opponent would let you escape, as for example in this situation, you would be able to go back here, or even take this pawn after you take the rook. Let's move on. So this is a checkmate in 2, which we've already seen quite similar things to. So just look for it. Give me a checkmate. A background checkmate. The correct answer is just sliding the queen down. As the queen takes back, there's still another attacker that is able to be used. So you slide the rook as well, and then you take the rook. So the king is boxed in, and you win the game. Our queen just got taken. However, once again, the same thing. Rook slides down, and we win. The knight previously, who was defending the queen here, he was defending this rook as well. So the knight got a little greedy, took the queen for material, but lost the game, since we're able to take the rook. Let's move on. This is a little bit of a different thing. This is a queen checkmate. We have the queen here, and it's attacking the king. There's mostly nothing that defends in this area, so just look for this mate in 1. There's a mate in 1. The correct answer is queen f1, as the queen covers all the squares that the king is able to go to. So the king isn't able to directly take the queen, as it's further than its reach, and the king isn't able to run, so it's checkmate. Let's move on. Okay, so this is an interesting puzzle, and this is a checkmate in one. Let's look at this position. Let's analyze the position. The opponent is threatening to promote. He's one square away from promoting, so we either have to stop that or find a way to attack his king first. This knight is attacking these two squares. So if we were to kind of flip the board sideways, we create this pocket for the king. So we see our rook being able to slide here, and we get the checkmate. This is pretty much the back rank checkmate, but just in a different situation, visualized differently. Okay, so this is probably the last back rank checkmate puzzle I will show in here, as this is probably the last concept of the back rank checkmate that you will probably see in a game. As here, it doesn't really seem like there's going to be a back rank checkmate. The king has two free spaces, 4 spaces where it can move to, so it's almost impossible to cover this. However, you already know that I mentioned a back rank checkmate. So, you see this rook which is able to slide down, but the king is able to take it. No, it can't, because the bishop, not too far from it, can defend this rook. So you slide it, but the king isn't able to move here, or here, or here, because these are protected by the rook, and then this one is protected by the queen. So the king has nowhere to go. Let's move on. Okay, so let's look at the situation, and I'm going to leave you completely without guidance here. I just want you to think about an idea here. We just saw this knight move, and our knight is able to take it. So what do? We take that knight, and we make a fork of the king and the queen. So now we're able to take it. Okay, so I said I'm not going to put any backrack checkmates in here. However, this is a little bit of a different situation. This is something that I haven't shown you. This is able to happen in an endgame situation. Your pawn is close to promoting, but the king is stopping it from it. And the king I like to imagine it as a force field, like a negative magnetic field, which pushes the enemy king away from it. So the king isn't able to access this area. The white king isn't able to access this area. And then this pawn is covering these two squares. So forming the pieces back together, we see the 3 squares indicating that we're able to do a back rank checkmate. The opponent blocks with the queen, but we're still able to take it and get the win. Okay, so this is a little bit of a different concept. Here, we see a knight being moved, making the king vulnerable to a rook. A rook is able to slide down, but what's the point? These squares aren't covered, so it's not a mate. However, this is a skewer. Here, we slide the rook down, the king is forced to move, and this opens an attack on the rook, and we're able to take it for completely free. Okay, so let's look at this position. This position seems quite scary. There's so much going on, and no pieces have actually been traded yet. And your opponent makes this move, threatening your queen. So you're gonna have to move your queen somewhere. So look at it. Look at this position. Think of a thing you would do. The correct thing is to just take this bishop. there is nothing defending this bishop. So there's nothing stopping you from taking it. Then, if your opponent doesn't move this knight, you're able to take this rook for free as well, and you just keep getting that material. And if you're able to trade your pieces down, you'll able to win the game. Okay, so let's look at this example. This is a different concept which we haven't seen yet this video. We can see the opponent made quite a useless bishop move. It's now boxed in with its pawns. But let's look at our position. Let's analyze what we have. We have these two rooks. They're not really doing anything, so we can just stop thinking about them. But now we have this bishop and this queen setting up a battery. So what is a battery? A battery is when you have two pieces lined up, usually a rook and a queen, or bishop and a queen, and then you are able to strike with one of those pieces, defended by the other. So usually a battery is set up usually from like when the queen is located here, and you just slide it once in order to create a one move threat, which can also become more and more of a threat later on. But here, the correct move would be to block with the pawn, for example. Block with this pawn. But the opponent doesn't do either, so we're able to get this checkmate. Okay, so this is probably the hardest puzzle this video. This is a discovered attack. This is a little similar to what we saw on one of the rook puzzles. However, here the knight just took a pawn and is now threatening our bishop and threatening a fork. So we have to act on it fast. But there is a mate in one in this situation. I didn't even find it the first time I looked at it. And the move is very fascinating. You might think maybe we could trade these pieces. But when you move this bishop, the thing you need to understand is when we move this bishop, there's an immediate threat on the king. So whatever we do, we could try to trade these bishops. But what point does that make? So the move we have to make is bishop b5. It seems like such a dumb move. I thought that it was for a second. But the knight, it looks like the knight is defending the square. But it's a double attack. So even if you were to take this bishop, the queen would take the king. I think this is enough for the video. If you want to look at some other puzzles, I would extremely suggest you to either go on chess.com and just play some puzzles. But there's a limit to how many puzzles you can do. Or you could just Google them, but they're usually not as fun and interactive. I would suggest to do the daily chess.com puzzles if you want to improve at the game and just have fun. Thank you for watching. Have a good rest of your day. Have a good night. Have a good Day of the Dead. I don't know. Goodbye.